entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Okay, today I thought I would put a video together about how to completely disassemble and then reassemble a 3DR Solo. I have a green cube inside this Solo that I want to take out because I'll probably wind up putting it in one of my other quads. So I want to take the green cube out and reinstall the stock cube. But what I'm going to do is do a complete disassembly to show you, simply put, how to take this thing completely apart. It's not difficult at all. There are probably a few other videos out there, so mine may be a little redundant, but hopefully you like it. Just as a fun exercise, I splayed out on the table all of the spare parts that I have from crashes and acquiring parts over time in the last year. I've got a tray, another fixed GoPro mount, an HDMI cable, a total of 5 motors that were involved in crashes. I think the ESCs on these are still good. Another fixed mount plate, apart from a fixed mount, 2 rubber dampers, the sunshade for the GoPro, the weights for the GoPro, the stock flight controller, 6 LED covers, 2 GPS covers, and a bunch of leftover screws, and even some of the nuts from the master air screw propellers. And then the leg extenders that my good buddy Chris at MD95 TSI gave me, along with a piece of sorbethane that comes with the green cube to act as isolation between the main board and the battery tray. Others have done a video showing that mod and how it tries to limit vibrations through the Solo. So we'll get started. I'm starting with obviously a completely assembled Solo with props installed, battery installed, and everything else. So first step is to take the battery off, take the props off. These are the older style master air screw props, and I went ahead and glued the nuts on myself. Okay, we flip it over. This is for removing the fixed mount, but removing the gimbal would be the same process. Just loosening these 3 screws. I hope you all can see this. I apologize, it's been very crappy weather in Florida for the last week and a half. That's why I haven't been outside flying, and I'm kind of bummed. So that's why I'm making this video. Just feed the HDMI cable back through. And like I said, this is very similar to removing the gimbal. You would unplug the HDMI from the HDMI port on the gimbal main board and disconnect the data connector on the main board, and then the gimbal pops off. Okay, while the Solo is flipped upside down, we will remove the screws for the motors. Again, this is pretty straightforward. 4 screws total for each motor pod. Okay, now comes removal of the motors, which is fairly straightforward. You just lift up, slide backwards. As you can see, I used some hot glue to try to lock down the wires a little bit, but the sheath slips right off, and then underneath there's the ESC data connector, and there's your motor. This was a little overkill on my part because I was worried. I've had an instances where there were some crashes, and when I took the quad apart after the crash, I noticed that this red wire had pulled away from the board with the solder button still intact. So I kind of felt like doing this would make me feel better about the integrity of these wires. I have to remember that number 1 is the silver motor. Okay, the other thing I can do is pop off the GPS cover and take off the battery tray, which is only 7 screws. This is a magnetized screwdriver, which is nice. I'll use one of these LED covers as another screw tray. This is a very nice screwdriver they give you. 3DR did. Because this is a reversible screwdriver. Pretty nice. Okay, all 7 screws are out. You lift the tray up from the back, you slide it backwards, and you unplug the GPS connector right there, and now the tray is out. This has the MRO M8N GPS that I bought last summer. It works pretty good. Set the tray aside. The motor's already all disconnected, so this will come out fairly quickly. The only thing you have to worry about is pulling out the antenna wires and the compass wire. And to get the compass wire out, you'll have to unscrew the leg. So I'm going to do that now, because there's the compass wire right there. And it won't fit through the slot with the leg still installed. So we're going to unscrew this leg. We're going to pop out this compass. Now the compass is held in by a screw, so if you pop that leg extender off, there's a screw right there that locks it in. So you just have to unscrew that. And I may want to use the smaller screwdriver to do that. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Now I'm on 3 legs. Okay, the main board is held in by 1 screw. It's this screw right there. Okay, and then with everything disconnected, you'll have to slide it forward, tilt it up, and then you can slide it out. But watch out for this ribbon cable right here, because that is connected on the bottom to the accessory bay, and the accessory bay is held in place with 2 screws. It's pretty easy. You just got to pop this off to expose it. There's the accessory bay. So let's remove this screw. Put that right there. And now you can lift this up. None of the wires are connected, so it's pretty easy to it's easier to lift it up. You can use a screwdriver to move the board around a little bit so you can get it lifted. Now, because all the wires are disconnected from the motors, you can just pull them out, including this is the data connector. Okay, now if you wanted to change the stock flight controller to the green cube, you can pretty much do it from here. This is this green cube. It's actually a black cube with a green sticker, but it's only held in place with 4 screws. These are the pieces of silverthane that I was talking about earlier that help with vibration isolation against the battery tray. So, but what we're going to do is pull the entire thing out. But this is pretty much it. Like I said, the only thing you have to watch for is that, feeding this compass through. Now that you've got the leg off, there's the compass. There's the motor wires. You've also got the antennas that you need to, they're held in place with Velcro onto the legs, so you can just kind of lift them up and you can hear the Velcro, that tearing sound. Okay, these will feed through the holes, I think. Oh, no, they won't. I gotta detach those legs as well. Okay, I'm almost there. I gotta pull this antenna wire out also. Okay, what I'm going to do right now is, there is the accessory bay board. Doggone it. It's held in place by that screw and that screw. And it's pretty simple. I'll try using this other screwdriver. Good thing I have quite a few screwdrivers here. They're a little difficult to get to, so you just got to have patience. The other one might be easier to get to if you go this way. Like I said, just watch that ribbon cable because it's somewhat fragile. Okay, the board is off. There's your accessory bay board. There goes my screw. Okay, now the only thing holding this in place now are the 2 antenna wires, so we just have to take off those 2 legs. I don't know what that was. That's a little concerning. That might have been from the last crash. So let's take off the rest of the legs. Oh, and there's the screw. It goes on the floor. I got to pick it up. Now we can disassemble the other 3 legs and just lay it flat. And there you have it. The motherboard has been completely removed. The body is completely disassembled. Pretty straightforward. But here you go. And if you flip this over, there's the green cube. So the whole purpose of me taking this apart is I want to pull the green cube off and put the stock cube back on. So we go right here. One screw, two screws, three screws, four screws, and voila. Green cube to be used on one of the other quads. Now, installation is just the reverse or removal. There's a little serial port that snaps in. Put the screws back in. Okay, I want to take a look at a couple of things. This HDMI cable, I was having issues with the rolling video feed, so I did the foam block mod, which is two steps. I pinched the HDMI port on the IMX6 and cut a piece of foam from the 3DR Solo original packaging and kind of stuffed it right in here. What this does is, this was a loose connection, so by pinching the HDMI port, it makes it a little bit stiffer putting it in, and then this puts pressure on it to basically keep it locked in place. The other thing is, this is normally zip tied to the board right here, and I believe that's a bad point of vibration into the gimbal and to the GoPro. So I cut that zip tie, stuffed a piece of moon gel, and then just used a twist tie from a trash bag to give it a little bit more flexibility there. And to try to isolate some of the vibration. Don't remember what I was doing here, but that's just a few of the things I did to try to limit vibrations. So I just want to take a quick look at this board before I put it back in. That Molex connector is a little bit loose, but from what I've seen, they're loose on just about every Solo. The data wires look good on the battery. Looks like everything's okay there. And the power wires look okay. That's something else I was a little bit concerned about. This all gets locked in when you put the battery tray back on. This is the GPS cable. This is the data connector for the gimbal. Obviously your HDMI cable. Your motor wires, your motor wires, your motor wires, your motor wires. Two antennas. And your compass. And this is your IMX6, which houses your Wi-Fi card and your antenna connections. And here's the accessory port. Like I said, this is a weak point right here. I'm a little worried about this. That's why you got to be careful when you're taking it apart. As you can see, this has been in a crash and it got a little bent up. Look at that. A little scuffed, not a little bent up. I guess that was just from the impact. This pad got a little scuffed up. No big deal. Okay. Let's put it back together. I had a little trouble there because that other insert popped out too, but I think we're as good as we're going to get. This body's a little beat up. It's got some cracks here and there, mostly from the bottom side of where these motors connect, but I can still make use of all this. So now it's time to put everything back together. Set the green cube aside over here. We're going to leave the legs off for right now so we can feed everything through. Okay, remember these are the two screws for the accessory bay. So first thing is to pop this accessory bay back on. Let's feed that. feed this. This is the compass cable. I want to feed it through here. So that's good. The antenna goes here. Same idea. And the other antenna. Okay. Let's screw down that accessory bay. Okay, remember, all I'm doing is the reverse of what I did before. Okay? Now we slide this back in. Let's move these wires out of the way for now. Take up the slack on the antenna wires and the compass wire. Oh, I know what this zip tie was for. I had put some moon gel around this and zip tied it up here against the body, but I don't think that's important now. Okay, so the board's back in. Let's put that one screw in to lock it down. That's this screw right here. That goes right there. Just make sure it's lined up properly. Okay, board's in good and tight. We can put the legs back on right now. Just be real careful around the wires. Remember that this was the compass leg because it's got the screw hole right there. The compass has to face in, from what I recall. We'll know in a minute if we start getting compass errors. Looks like the Velcro came off on this one, so we'll do the best we can to get it to stay in. Okay, the legs are back on. We just have to quickly fish the power and data wires for each motor back up through. There they go. Okay, time to put the motors back on. I'm going to reinstall the sorbothane. Tuck the wires back a little bit. Everything looks good. Time to put the tray back on. Hear that click? The sorbothane kind of makes it so it pushes up on the tray a little bit, so that putting in the screws are a little bit tougher, but not bad. Okay. That's the bad thread, so that's why it's sitting up a little bit. But that is pretty much it. Reassembly of Solo is complete. The only thing I have to do is reinstall the Open Solo firmware because I exchanged flight controllers. But it is ready to go. Okay, right now it's going through the Open Solo firmware update. This may not have needed it, but since I exchanged the green cube for the stock controller was installed on this Solo, and I installed Open Solo on it, so it probably didn't need to be updated, but we're going to update it again just in case. This is a process that takes about 5 to 7 minutes. I've reinstalled Open Solo. I've done the compass and IMU calibrations. Everything appears to be working normally. Obviously I can't go out and fly it today because nasty weather, but I'm going to do a quick motor test on Solex. So I'm going to hit start on the slow. Everything looks good. So I guess I can close this out. Some parting comments. I really like the Solo. I mean, all around, I really enjoy working on this quad. Currently I have 3, but this one I may end up parting out and selling the parts and keeping the other 2. But I really just like taking it apart and working on it. It can get frustrating at times trying to fish all the wires through, but I hope I demonstrated that the way to describe it is being so modular, it's not difficult to take apart and work on it. This is what I think separates it from DJI. I don't think you can take you have to be very talented to be able to take a DJI apart and service it. Whereas you don't necessarily, because I'm not talented at all, you don't have to be talented to take this thing apart and service it. You can get replacement motors for this. It takes a little bit of soldering, but you can change out these motors. There are people that have done it. Or you can just change the bearings out, and that'll basically give you like a new motor. So people worried about parts, I'm really not. The only thing that's not being produced right now is the body, but I think there's enough bodies out there that will be in good shape for a while. And hey, if you don't crash, you don't need a body. So I will close this out.